everyone, and welcome to the LEC Lounge. My name is Sjokz, and in this brand new format, we will be welcoming a special guest in every episode. I'll be having a one-on-one conversation with them about League, about life, about everything in between, and a lot of the things that we wouldn't get a chance to talk about when it comes to a normal interview on the LEC. And for our very first guest, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Carlos Rodriguez Santiago, aka Ocelote. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast, hopefully. Well, it's awesome to have you. Let's just dive straight into it. We have to talk about the 2019 G2 Esports roster. The absolute insanity of what you pulled off in the off-season. Now that everything's kind of settled and it's working out, are you breathing out? Are you thinking, okay, it was all worth it?
No, no, because now we gotta make it work, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not just as you've probably seen in the last 10 years of League life almost. A lot of teams have been built. A lot of them were super teams, and most of those super teams failed miserably. Mm-hmm. So it's not just building the team or the super team; it's also making it work, which requires extra work, which requires extra thinking about what the team needs. When are you giving them too much? When are you taking from them too much? You just gotta be mindful about this during the whole season. So right now is we always say this, but when the real work starts, you know. Yeah. But every time is when the real work starts. So yeah.
Could you tell me, kind of from what incentive you wanted to build this roster? Mm-hmm. Did you have a feeling of, I don't care what happens, I don't care how I'm going to get there, but I don't want to be second place or third place or fourth place anymore because I ruled Europe and I'm getting it back no matter what? So
the short answer is yes. The long answer is we do see ourselves as the absolute, and I know we overuse this word, kings of Europe.
Say it.
I like it. Yeah. So I see ourselves as the kings of Europe, as the true kings of Europe. The moment we came into the league, with completely different rosters. We had, back in the day, Kiki Stoplin, which is considered, that's pretty much a rookie, right? A Kiki Stoplin. Hybrid, Emperor, guys that haven't proven themselves before. Trick, which nobody knew. And then Perksman in the mid lane, which again was also a rookie.
Yeah.
And we won ULCS back then. Then we won 3 times in a row. And ever since we got into the LCS, we are the rightful kings. So the moment in 2018 we lost that title, it really hurt a lot because that's not who we are. We are supposed to win Europe. But then beyond that, which is more than a dream, a basic goal, I myself personally have the goal of winning Worlds. Mm-hmm. I was never, as a player, good enough to be in a position to win it. And I feel like it's my responsibility to do everything in my hand to ensure that G2 is set up the best possible way to win it. Now, nobody knows the future. Nobody knows whether we will win it or not. But one thing's for sure, we have increased the chances dramatically this year. And that, to me, is worth a lot.
Yeah, and I think I can also agree with you. We don't know the future, but for the gamble that the roster was, it's working out phenomenally. And of course, we'll have to follow it up. But on the flip side of that, it wasn't an easy period for you. You got a lot of hate for it online, you particularly, because you always set yourself on the forefront when something happens. I think you kind of want to take the blame, right? Is it that you want to take it away from your players? You say, okay, you can be mad at me. Don't be mad at my players. I'm just trying to make the best team possible.
There's part of that, and there's also a character part, right? Mm-hmm. The character part is obvious. Our brand stands for being slick, being self-deprecative, being liking banter a lot, being always relevant. That is what our brand is about, being clean,
Winners.
And winners. It's like a combination between Tony Stark and Deadpool. That's how you have to think about it. That's from a character perspective, and we have a ton of fun with that. But then on the emotional side of things, there's a lot of value, and people underestimate the value of this. There's a lot of value in taking off that pressure from your players' shoulders. If you remember the vacation meme, everything came out from Perks saying, the team didn't practice as much, which is, by the way, wasn't true.
No.
They practiced incredibly much. But he I guess used it as a defensive mechanism to justify how badly they were playing.
You can't just say we sucked, right? You want to say something.
Exactly, and it's a rookie mistake. He knows that, right? But then the organization had two options. Either we side with the community, which means we side with those that said, "What are you saying?" Or we side with the player, which said, it's true. The players were in a tough spot, and they did indeed, train less for whatever reason. And then, so we sided with the player. And as a result, we got a lot of blame for it. But as something I learned when I was very young, when I used to do judo, actually, is that you use the momentum against your opponent, right?
Yeah.
And I use that literally in my day-to-day basis, like all the time. Like I can tell you tens of instances every day where I use that. If something bad comes my way, then I use the momentum against the opponent, right? And that's what we did with the vacation meme. Ever since then, we've been able to develop a very unique character that people may love or hate, but definitely know it exists. And that to me is very valuable for both the league and building a solid fan base over the years, because you're not just another team.
No.
You're G2, and people know what G2 stands for.
Yeah, for a long time it was the villain, I think that was also kind of community brought on, but you ran with it. Now I think it's villain, but you're trying to give it some more kind of character, right? It's not just the bad guy.
We just like to have fun a lot, and it's very easy to misunderstand that when people don't know how you really are. So the first years, they're like, okay, these guys are kind of arrogant, but as time goes by, people realize, well, these guys are just fucking around, they're just having a lot of fun. And once people understand that, it's much easier to see everything we say with different eyes. And that's the position we're at the moment. I'm very happy, actually.
Is the team brand of G2, is that kind of also a personification of kind of Carlos? Because when I look at G2 and I think of the values, the winner mentality, to don't stop for anyone, to if you want to see me as a bad guy, that's fine, I will still go for it. For me, that's Carlos as well,
We also have this conversation internally, Is this, are our character traits a byproduct of us choosing them? Or are the character trait a byproduct of us being that way?
Yeah.
And I think that the same way as if, one of these reality TV shows, they follow with a camera, they follow the people around for like 3-4 months. It's really hard not to see the true side of these people. Really, really hard.
You can't hide it.
At the end of the day, we work 6 days a week, approximately, if not 7, if we have games on Sundays, and really long days as well. And it's really hard not to install that internal culture, an internal way of being and reacting to things, to everything we do. Every time we post on Twitter, every time we post a video on Instagram, we make a content piece, we choose to react on Reddit with our accounts. Everything you see from G2 is a byproduct of the culture that we have internally. And typically, everything you see that we put out to the outside is in sync with our values, typically. When it's not, it's because there has been a mistake, a misalignment internally, or whoever was doing that one thing just decided to go completely off character.
Can I just ask, because you are the owner of G2, you're very much the face of G2, and sometimes when I look at your Twitter...
I'm irrelevant now, what are you saying?
That is not true, and it is true, Carlos. Come on.
I was much more relevant. If I stream right now, I get no viewers.
Yeah, okay, but you're not a streamer though, you're a different person.
Fine,
what I mean is, people look to you for opinions about G2 Esports, right? And sometimes after a game, I see the Carlos account, Ocelote, tweeting something that, about Rogue or whatnot, or for instance that I have to do a double take. Is that an active choice that you're also like, what, I still want to be I want to be edgy and I still want to give my opinions even though I'm running this business, and where does that come from?
It's a very good question, actually, because it's 2 points to this. Point number 1 is sometimes when some people see you a certain way, it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy within your being. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but when you read, even if it's from a smaller part of the community, things like this guy is a hater or whatever, sometimes that kind of becomes a part of you, and you have to keep that in check. And sometimes you miss the mark. If you want to be different, that's something I've learned through my 14 years in this industry. If you want to be different to all your peers, sometimes you will get it very wrong.
Yeah.
And you know, you can look at my career. There's an incredible amount of ups and an incredible amount of downs, and that's just is a byproduct of trying out stuff. You try out stuff. I'm gonna try the tweet, then the tweet doesn't come off as you thought it would come
Type
off.
an apology. No.
And then you either type an apology or you own up to it.
Yeah.
And eventually let your actions speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I lived by as time went by. But yes, I do fuck up a lot, on Twitter especially, and to this day I still do.
I mean, I do as well. I think from a personal standpoint, I respect you a lot for doing it because, as you said, you've been in the industry now 14 years. You've been kind of in the public eye for 10 almost, maybe even longer. For me, it's about 7 now. And I have found it increasingly more difficult to do that. And you keep doing it. You keep pushing the boundaries on Twitter and whatnot. But with this whole culture where people are really putting a microscope on everything you say nowadays, I'm afraid of it. And you know, I wish I had a bit more of your qualities.
If you say something that's not PR perfect,
yeah,
you will get flack from a number of people, undeniably, right? So that's why people that tend to be more known over time, or people that end up being in, I guess, more of a spotlight,
yeah,
end up being more and more bland as time goes by, because they just stick to this window that they know nothing bad will happen, right? But then what happens is that you lose your soul as who you are, right? And I always try to keep. It's really hard. That's why I said that I fuck up on Twitter. I fuck up very much. I screw up a lot, but it's a fine price to pay in order to keep, you know, being different and myself and true to my soul, really.
Yeah, I think I'll take that advice because I
be careful. Please don't take that advice literally. Just give it some time. You know, it's I'm not that good at it. I'm still learning.
So now let's talk a bit about the businessman, Carlos. You know, the man behind the G2 empire, let's say. Do you think you're a good businessman?
I'm more of a competitor in general than a good player or a good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or a good sportsman or whatever. I just love competition, and business is still competition, and I don't want, you know, the 7th best business in the industry. I want the best business in the industry, and I get physically hurt when somebody else is first. So I'm a competitor above everything, and that makes me, I think, a good businessman, because I get to learn things, even things that I may not like.
Yeah,
I have to learn.
But you know you have to get better.
I mean, there are a lot of examples of successful people in the entertainment industry that may not be, you know, the best business people, but they're just charismatic, or that, you know what I mean? But I feel like if you want to lead an entertainment company to success, you definitely need to understand, you know, how to make that business sustainable and how to connect the dots while still entertaining people, right? And that requires certain, you know, basics and certain level of understanding of how the business operates.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning a lot, and I'm nowhere near being, you know, perfect or at the level I want to be. I keep learning. That's it.
Yeah.
I remember when we were back in SK Gaming times.
7 years ago?
7 years ago.
Yes.
You always get to see who has it in them. Like, you always get to see early on who has the eye of the tiger, so to say, when it comes into personal success. I knew I always had it, and I know I will always have it. And the same thing I saw with you, actually, when you were, you know, editing your own videos and making all these interviews.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that you were gonna go places, you know?
Yeah.
So what were you thinking about, you know, when you were in SK Gaming doing all those interviews, and did you ever think you were gonna end up like this?
No, but there was this like unstoppable force, and I also think it had to do with League back then. League back then, you needed to be part of it. You know how it was? It was so big, it was so exciting, it was so cool. And I did always think, this is what I have to do, this is where I'm going to find success, and it might take forever, you know, and it might make me unhappy down the way, but this is what I want to do. And I think I'm similar to you in that regard, but I'm definitely not as bloodthirsty. You are like, you you know how in Belgium they say sometimes you would step over dead bodies to get to where you have to be. It's very intense, but you know what I mean? It's like, I have that drive that I want to be the best, but I don't do that well in direct competition. You know, if there's someone there who is doing better, I'm not good at confrontation necessarily. I'm good at looking within myself and like focusing and preparing very well and like nailing it and being good. I think you're more the type that you could go, you know, you go in a discussion with someone, same in your business. You'll take on the challenge head to head, even if you have to look someone in the eye and give them bad news or good news, or tell them they did shit. You know what I mean?
I think you're actually 100% right. It's very close to this example you see, comparing Messi versus Ronaldo. It's like one is the effortless talent, and I think that's what you are, and one is somebody that still has talent, which is Ronaldo, but he just works so hard and he just has such a drive that makes him thrive, you know, for years and years.
So you're Ronaldo?
I think I'm more the Ronaldo kind than the Messi kind, just because I know that if I wouldn't work as hard as I do, I wouldn't be nowhere near where I am. Or Kobe, same story. He just keeps trying and trying and trying, right? So I think both kind of people have similar levels of success. It's just, you just get to enjoy it a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I still get super, super stressed as well. But yeah, I try to avoid the like direct confrontation when I can. It's something that I also have to learn because you have to in life, right? I mean, I just went freelance. You know, I have to talk to people. I have to talk to people about work and whatnot. And sometimes that isn't easy. It's very hard. Do you thrive on those? When you know that there's going to be a difficult meeting, but you have a goal, and you know that there is a chance you can get that goal. Is it about merch? Is it about partners? Is it about sponsors, whatever? And there's like a 5% chance that you can convince these people and you can make it happen. I bet you take that as a challenge.
I call it crunch time.
Crunch time, yeah.
When I look at players, actually it's funny you mentioned this, because when you look at players, a lot of players are mechanically skilled. But in esports especially, or well, actually any sport, but in esports you see that very often. Every game is made of small crunch time moments. And either you have the nature of thriving in crunch time moments or you don't. People like Perks, people like Caps, you know, people from other games that we have, they thrive in crunch time moments, you know? And I don't know exactly what it is. It's a bit of confidence, it's a bit of arrogance, it's a bit of belief, I guess.
It's preparation also and knowledge that you are the best, you know?
Yes, a lot of preparation. But yeah, you're right. There's, you know, I'd say 90% of the business success or 90% of the success in general is made in 10% of the occasions. That is like an actual rule, right?
Yeah.
So 10% of the things you do will generate 90% of the output, right? And those 10% moments are so crucial. And you have to be on your A game. That one interview, that one investor meeting, that one, you know, you have literally when they talk about the elevator pitch, you have 5 minutes or something to talk to somebody. What are you going to say? Well, I may not be prepared, but believe me, if you tell me I have 5 minutes to speak with this person and convince this person of investing in G2, you better be ready because that guy will invest, you know? I will be ready, you know, and I will have no fear.
Maybe you should negotiate for me.
You'd be surprised. My first, the first times I've done this, I failed miserably.
Yeah.
But
is there anything you can share, like that? What you first time, and I know you don't have to name any names of what like failed, you know, but you walked out and you were like, I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this.
Yes. Well, some investor meetings. I go in either with too much confidence, which then the investor completely demolishes me with questions and answers I don't understand. Answers I don't know, sorry.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, or I go way too defensive and they think I'm lacking vision, right? So a lot of times, way too many times, I have ended a conversation or a meeting or negotiation just saying I fucked up. Yeah. I mean, and you have to own up to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not too bad, you know?
No. It's hard though. The first times it's very hard.
Yeah, but this is, as always, you know, if you just fail 1,000 times, at some point you just grow numb to it. Not grow numb to failing, but grow numb to the depression that follows up to that failure. And instead use that to fuel kind of anger and energy. In a way, you know what's a very good thing about esports, I feel? Somebody like Faker in his peak, what was his win rate in solo queue? Maybe 65, 60%? That means that he loses 34% of the games.
Yeah.
So keep in mind that the best player in the world at the time
Also loses
yeah. 34% of the games, right, in solo queue. Which means that if he loses that amount of games and he gets to learn out of those losses, then you know that's exactly the right way to go. And that's at least the way I see it and the way it works for me. You just fail, and at some point you get it right.
But it is it's true, of course. The world is not gonna end because you made a mistake. But I do think in your position, and maybe in mine as well, when you're in charge of you choose to be in charge of your own destiny, right? I'm now a freelance. I'm basically my own business.
So yeah,
you have this business.
I have actually. So in regards to your kind of freelance work and the way you approach it, what is the major difference that you see from having historically
worked for a company,
worked for somebody or a company, and now just being?
Well, I'm a very safe person. I'm a very I like knowing what amount of money will be on my bank account every month, what I can spend, and if I have my rent paid, then I can play video games for the rest of it, basically, right? And in that regard, working for a company is perfect, right?
Yeah.
And Riot is a great company to work for in terms of growth opportunities and the chances you're given, but it's also a lot of work, and it's not always what you want to be spending your time on, I would say. Most of the time it is, but there's also a lot of meetings, team meetings, company meetings, brainstorm sessions, all that, which takes up a lot of other time. And everything is basically LEC and League of Legends.
Yep.
And from my perspective, after 7 years now, I just wanted to do different things as well. I wanted to do a lot of LEC, but if there is some Counter-Strike here or there, why not? If there's maybe a conference I can host about a topic that I'm kind of into, but I know not too much about, yes, I'll study my ass off and I'll work for it. I want to have new opportunities, but in terms of my personality, it's the complete opposite. Now I'm like, all right, it's up to me now. If it all fails, it's me. And for you, it's not just you. It's your family, it's your employees, it's your players. I don't know, it's like a lot of pressure. How do you deal with that? And I'm like more of a pessimistic person, so I think you're more of a positive person regardless, so you look at it as opportunity.
Yes, as I said before, everything is about the momentum you utilize.
Yeah.
That judo example, I think, is like the one thing, if you ask me one thing, just give me one suggestion out of your personal experience, is use that. Whatever happens, as bad as it is, imagine how bad it could be, okay?
Yeah.
You can still use that for good outcome, or find something good out of it. Talking about pressure, I just like it to be there.
Yeah.
And I think without pressure, there's no growth. If you just feel comfortable all the time, why would you try, that one a little bit more edgy to it? Why would you try the different negotiation strategy? Why would you try to put perks on AD carry and caps in the mid lane? It's true. Why would you try it if there wasn't pressure to win worlds? I feel pressure to win worlds, so I have to do everything it takes. It could have failed miserably. It still can fail miserably. We may actually lose player. Who knows, right?
Who knows when this comes out? You're at the bottom of the league. I don't think so, but
everything can happen, right?
Yeah.
And especially in hindsight, now you see okay, it's a good team. But when it happened, there was a large portion of the community that were like, well, this is not gonna work.
This is gonna be.
And I wasn't sure either. But unless you try these things, and unless you try these things, you can't get the edge. Simple.
Yeah. So you mentioned before a couple of times already, your wife. You of course have a beautiful wife. You have a small son. You're Carlos, the family man now. It's still weird for me to think about it because for so long you were, Carlos, the player, the streamer. Player, I mean, in the sense of,
Yeah, well, okay, you can say it. You can say it.
You can talk about that if you like. Let's say the young, successful guy, that went around, and then all of a sudden, you found the woman you wanted to be with, and then you have a child together. That must have changed your life immensely.
Well, it actually did, and she's actually my first girlfriend, really. which is funny, right?
I'm sure I've seen you with a couple of women
yeah,
a couple of years ago.
She's my first girlfriend, definitely.
Okay, that says enough.
And it'll be my last, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I love her so much, and she has exactly she's exactly the way that I need the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with need to be, really. Now with the son, things, you know, the complexity multiplies by, you know, 100. Of course, you know, your son, you have to think about, you know, where's this school? I want him to be in this French-speaking school or whatever. Like, you get to think about stuff you didn't have to think about before.
Yeah.
And it gets more complicated. But at the same time, it fills me with extra energy and motivation to be overall better.
I mean, I know your wife is a little bit younger than you.
Yeah, one year younger.
1 year younger, but it's kind of, you know, she understands it, I can imagine, but has she ever sat you down and been like, Carlos, listen, I know you have to answer 200 emails, I know you have to go to this meeting, I know you have to fly to wherever in the next couple of weeks, but can you just sit down and just enjoy this moment with me? Yeah.
Several times,
yeah.
And it'll keep happening, you know? And it's always an internal fight of what I should do from a career progress standpoint versus what I should do from a family responsibility standpoint.
Yeah.
It's always, you have to always like wiggle between that.
Yeah.
And as time goes by, it doesn't get any easier. But you know, as a result of the experience you earned throughout your career, you learn how to delegate better. You learn how to scale the business. You learn how to be more in a position where you strategize whatever happens next. And then you actually do benefit as your role changes over time from being just in a happy environment with your family, because then you get back to work and you think more creatively, you think more, you know, you think bigger.
Yeah.
You don't think about details anymore. You don't think about micro anymore. And I asked you this because it was the case for me, but I asked you this. Don't you think that as your career and your life progressed, and your job got harder, because right now your job is pretty hard.
Yeah,
like you said,
complex.
you have to like balance a lot of things. Now you're a freelancer. Now you have to make your own bread or find your own bread, your own
and
cheese.
I can't even cook.
Know?
Yeah.
I can't cook either. So imagine.
Yeah.
And as things get harder, at the same time they get more rewarding.
Yeah.
Life gets more rewarding.
Yeah.
And that's something I do appreciate. Do you appreciate that as well?
I appreciate it. I think you almost, I mean, even though it's not easy to have a successful business and have a successful personal life. I think for the longest time, it could not work together. I could not have a relationship and do what I was doing. In part because, you know, we worked every weekend. I was always watching. I was always preparing. People would be like, can you come to this birthday party? No, because it's LCS.
Yeah.
Easy, for 7 years. Can you, in September, can you come? No, I'll be, I don't know where for Worlds. But it was also not a big sacrifice. It didn't feel like a sacrifice. But in the long run, it was. Because it was impossible for me to have a relationship at all, or even hang on to old friends at all. And I thought they can't coexist. I can't be this driven and give as much to another person. I can't do it. But as I became older, I thought, well, no, you can't. But yes, you can. But you need to work on it harder. Yeah. And you need, it all takes time, and it all takes a lot of work, but you have to make the conscious decision that you deserve it, you know, and that you can make it happen. And I feel like for you, it went pretty, you met her, you knew she was the one.
I met her like 5 years ago.
Boom.
I met her 5 years ago, so we had our child very fast, as you can see. My child is now 2 years and 9 months, I think. So everything happened very, very fast.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it did, because I'm sure about my decision.
Yeah. Well, talking about, you know, your son who is growing up to read the internet, to be on the internet. You've said it before, like you tweet whatever comes in your mind sometimes, and sometimes you make a mistake. Your players tweet sometimes the craziest stuff. Do you feel kind of responsible knowing that a lot of young people, maybe even your son in just a few years, is going to read that stuff?
You know, when looking to educate my son, I put focus in just be a good person, right? And don't settle for mediocrity. And mediocrity in every sense of the word. Focus on progress and focus on being a good person, you know? And it is really hard. I mean, you really have to be incredibly cynical to read really any of the tweets that I put or any of the tweets that our players put and think that they're bad people or we are bad people. You really have to be incredibly cynical.
Yeah.
What you can't say is that, oh my God, they're arrogant, or oh my God, oh my God, they crossed the line. But it clearly is, nothing is coming from a place of hatred or harm, that we don't want to harm anybody.
No.
You can call somebody a DJ and not necessarily have that be incredibly harmful.
A DJ?
That's what I call Sam Matthews, the founder of Fnatic, because he's literally a DJ. And he, instead of getting salty, he could just call me bodybuilder, even though I'm literally very small after 2 years of going to the gym. How do you have two options. You have two options only: the option of love or the option of fear. When you read something, you have two options. How do you react to that thing you're reading?
Yeah.
With love or fear? When you're going to post a tweet, when you're going to post a video, when you're going to react to something in a conversation, you can react with love or fear, reacting with fear is reacting with defensiveness, like a cat. Yeah, exactly. When you react with love, you understand the other person's
empathy.
Kind of empathy. Exactly. Yeah. It's all about empathy.
So maybe as a last topic, let's talk about how things are and what the league scene has evolved to. Of course, you as a business owner, you say, you want to build the best league team possible because winning is what make the brand become bigger, and the company do well. And you do that in multiple different titles. Where do you see league kind of evolving to and how the competitive scene is right now? I know people love talking about when's league gonna die or whatnot, but things are
that ain't for a fight.
Things seem to be going pretty good.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we indeed won a lot in our first 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, first, let's just not talk about Gamers 2, okay? For a second.
What? Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
First 2 years of G2 Esports, and 3 years even, but and that made people think that we were only there to win. But as time passed, people realized that we're also there to entertain. Mm-hmm. So it's win and entertain at the same time. That's very important for us. But now, thinking about the industry in general, thinking about League of Legends, the game will not die anytime soon. There's people that 10 years ago were playing 10 hours a day that are playing 10 hours a day today.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to develop a game that has enough accessibility for new people to come in, but enough depth for old people to come in. That's unbelievable. The level of complexity that a game must have for that to be the case is beyond reason. So League of Legends will not die anytime soon. And something just doesn't die from one day to another, you know? Things decelerate. And League of Legends is not decelerating. So if you ask me, I do think 20, 30 years from now, League of Legends will still be alive as one of the top esports and top video games on the planet.
I agree with you, especially with, I hope so also, obviously. And I hope that then in 20 years, you and me can sit down again and have another talk.
That would be beautiful.
About G2's 5 World Championship titles across.
That's very possible.
That would be good. That would be
we are just selling VR tickets for our stadium. It's just all, the future's here.
VR. No, maybe.
The future's here.
I do want to thank you for a wonderful conversation. This was lovely.
Thanks to you as well.
I learned a lot about Carlos. Yeah, it was.
He was really, really pleasant. I learned a lot from you too. And it made me remember also those times in SK and how everything started and it's just beautiful. So congratulations on your careers, progress and success.
I know you messaged me after when I'm making my YouTube channel and stuff, and you talked about is this the beginning of the empire?
Yes. Yes.
So we'll catch up in a few years and see where we are.
Best of luck.
Thank you. You too. Well then, that was it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I definitely had a wonderful time talking to Carlos, and we will see you next time.